Smashers of the Internet, and welcome to our 100th episode of
80 Bit Podsmash,
Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer. We are your hosts,
Penguin and Termite. I'm Penguin.
I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
Yeah, tonight, for our 100th episode, we're gonna be talking about my generation. Generation.
That's every time I hear that song, that's all I think about.
That's what it kind of sounds like Jimmy.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about human generations this time. We've talked about console generations, but this time we're going to be talking about human generations.
Humans.
It's going to be very humany-woomany.
On our very Benjamin episode.
Yeah, our Benjaminth
Yep.
episode. So we'll get to the main topic soon, but we're going to start, like we always do, with some banter and some news. So what's going on?
Let's see. What is going on? I haven't
You don't
really...
have to talk about news.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on in the gaming industry right now, I guess.
It's not really a lot.
Borderlands 3 hype has happened. There's some Pokemon trailers that have happened.
There was a little bit of controversy with like a streamer who got... If you're talking about the people on the side of the streamer, he got harassed. If it's from Gearbox's side, they had been investigating him, but basically two private investigators showed up at this guy's house because he had been posting YouTube videos that were like leaking.
Oh yeah,
that were like featuring leaks or whatever. I don't know how. I'm torn because on the one hand, it's like, yeah, they have the right to like protect their proprietary information. I'm not quite sure they should have sent private investigators to his house. Probably just should have had his videos pulled,
right,
from the various things, and then sent a what is
cease
it? Cease and desist. Yeah, exactly. That to me, but like sending people to quote harass him, that does seem a little weird. So there was a whole boycott Borderlands 3 movement.
Again.
Again.
Exactly. Epic Game Store's round one. Now
there was the Epic Game Store. There was the CEO's controversy with Randy Pitchford and all that stuff, and all the behavior he's had over the past years. Like, there's a lot kind of piling up on Gearbox. So we'll see how the franchise itself kind of holds up after all the dust settles.
I think it'll be okay.
It'll be fine. I mean,
we're getting Borderlands 3.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna get it. Nothing so far has been enough for me to be like, well, absolutely, I'm not buying that.
Right.
Yeah, but it would take a lot too because Borderlands is one of my favorite franchises. But
yeah,
that's really all I've recently seen in the news. Nothing crazy happening with any of the bigs.
Yeah.
Is Nintendo? Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft announced that they are going to force any game with loot boxes to reveal the chances, the odds of that. So that's cool.
This
that's
is good. This is a self-regulating movement to avoid government overreach into the gaming industry and trying to regulate things unnecessarily. So I think it is a great move. I'm glad they're doing it.
Yeah. I'm glad they're all doing it together too. Like it's not like one platform's doing it. They're all taking a stand against
do
the
this
practice.
together.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Just like the whole ESRB rating system existed as a result of the gaming industry self-regulating and saying, no, I don't think the government needs to be involved.
Yeah.
Back in the Mortal Kombat days.
What's going on with your life, though, since there's not much
exhausted.
news?
We have a 1-month-old and a 4-year-old. The 4-year-old is up at 7 a.m. with full energy and expects to be completely catered to all day long until he goes to bed at 8 p.m. And we have a 1-month-old who sleeps in increments throughout the day, but only one good 4-hour chunk at night. So So
the days are exhausting and the nights are exhausting.
Everything's exhausting.
Everything's exhausting.
Yeah, there's no rest. It's
no rest for the wicked.
Right. Yeah. Money doesn't grow on trees.
Nope.
Borderlands 1 theme song.
And the lullaby I sing to my son every night.
Nice. So I'm just really tired. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still what are we drinking? Right.
Oh, yeah, I'm drinking. But we're drinking Buffalo Trace again, and you're drinking water because you're on your 2-week hiatus.
2-week alcohol hiatus.
2 more weeks, I will no longer be on my diet, so I'll be able to drink beer again. So let's make that happen. It'll be fun.
It will be fun.
Things are kind of crazy for me, too. Work has been, I've set my responsibilities, due to circumstances, my responsibilities have kind of doubled overnight, which would be great if I was getting paid more, but it's kind of a...
That's no fun.
All around, it's not just me though. It's kind of everyone in the company has sort of had to increase their workload, and it's fine. But it's also one of those things where it's like, when we're in a better spot, when the dust settles from all the shakeups that have been happening, I kind of am going to be like, so that I'm doing twice the work that I was doing before. Can we talk about compensation? But it's fine. It's just a lot of things that I don't really feel qualified for, and so I'm very much like. regularly kind of having to fight back imposter syndrome and fake it till you make it kind of situation at work. So that's kind of been stressful for me as well. So I've just been kind of like, I haven't even, like, I think I told you I haven't even really been playing many games recently because I'm just like, I want to come home and just turn my brain off. So I end up watching TV or whatever with my wife after, of course, interacting with my son and stuff like that. But when he goes to bed, usually when he would go to bed would be my game time. But recently I've just been like, I just want to watch something. So, yeah. So it's challenging times, but it's fine. It's just a season, right?
That's it. That's what they say.
It's a season.
Yeah.
So
I'm in that stage where I get home from work and help with dinner and clean up dinner and put the 4-year-old to bed and then hold the 1-month-old so my wife can sleep finally because she's been home all day with both kids. And so it's midnight and I've done nothing but work and kids, which is fine. That's family life.
That's life. Yep.
With 2 very young kids. So
we're still doing the podcast. You know,
we're
what
still
I mean?
here.
So
we're still recording
doing the podcast. So
my poor wife upstairs doing it all by herself like she's been all day.
Yep. I will say one final like life update. My son is just about on the verge of crawling. He's about to turn 6 months on Saturday, and
Has it
he's
been
like
that long already?
he like he can get up on his knees and his hands, so he's on all fours and then kind of rocks back and forth. And I'm like, come on, just crawl. So he's great. He's super smiley. He's at that. I don't know if all babies have that or if it's just my kid, but like as long as he's fed and had a good nap and like. It doesn't take anything. I can just be talking. Come home and talk to Macy about my day, like complaining about work, and my kid will look up at me and go, and I'm like, yes. I'm glad I can entertain you. Yeah, I'm glad I can entertain you.
You're just thankful for the attention.
That's it. That's it. So, it's a good stage. But for all you non-parents out there,
this is what you get to look forward to.
I mean, yeah, on the one hand, it's like, oh, they're exhausting, and poor Termite here is not getting any sleep. On the other hand, you get a creature who will like adore every little stupid thing you do. So, you know, there's pros and cons in both cases. Don't make big life decisions without talking through them with your partner first.
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, just sort of a general piece of advice from Penguin here.
From our family-friendly podcast.
Yeah, exactly. You too, kids. Don't make big decisions without talking to your parents first.
Yep. That's good news. That's good life advice.
Talk to someone important and close
advice.
to you. Yeah, generally.
How to Run Your Life by Penguin.
All right. So we can move on from talking about our lives and the world and move into
doing this podcast is our favorite thing. Doing this podcast is our favorite thing.
Favorite things. It is a segment of our podcast that we like to set aside time for to update you on our favorite thing, the thing that we're most excited about this week, in hopes that you might find your next favorite thing.
Yeah. My favorite thing is actually part of my backlog of favorite things. And I know last week I talked about the bachelor party that we were on, but specifically about the bachelor party with the Manhattans. That's going to be my favorite thing.
Brought it up.
So it is, we used Knob Creek Rye, regular sweet vermouth that you would get at the ABC store, Angostura bitters, and some Luxardo cherries, and we stirred them over ice and strained them into a chilled glass, and they were absolutely amazing. It was my first real dive into the world of Manhattans because I was an old-fashioned guy before that.
Yeah.
And so having made them myself and they tasted so good, I now want to order them everywhere. Nice. So kicking off of that, after the bachelor party, we went to the rehearsal dinner downtown in Fredericksburg, and there's a restaurant called Quebeca, and they have a bougie cocktail bar, and we got a cocktail flight because it was restaurant week. So I got 3 cocktails, and there was one cocktail that was like a blackberry cocktail. It was absolutely incredible.
I love anything blackberry.
Yeah.
Like I'll give it a try. Like you tell me you mix blackberry with like quinoa and cream cheese. Yeah, I'll give it a try for sure.
There you go. Mm-hmm. So cocktails are my favorite thing this week. I'm loving them.
Nice.
Even though I'm on an alcohol hiatus for 2 weeks.
I want to talk about that for a quick second because I just had a thought. Remember back in January when I had like a ton of spicy food and alcohol when I was on my keto diet the first time after the Super Bowl, and for like a week I had like stomach cramps that was due to the acid buildup. And I said, hey, it would be really nice if I could just drink water tonight.
And I was like,
and you wouldn't let me. Yeah.
No.
Let's just focus on your little 2-week purge here.
Now I'm a
little more sympathetic to it. Yeah, okay.
So and I don't even have any ailments. I feel great, except for the lack of sleep. I don't have a messed up stomach. Or what did you drink that night?
Because I was on keto. Remember, we were drinking straight liquor for
All right.
for the Super Bowl. And that was when we were playing Smash before the actual game.
Uh-huh.
And then ate a bunch of spicy food, buffalo dip, jalapeno poppers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we recorded that night, the same
No,
day?
no, no. We didn't re-recorded the Thursday following.
Yeah.
And I was just like, everything hurts. Everything is awful. And I thought, remember I texted you because I thought I had maybe I had like, food poisoning or something. I was like, are you guys sick? And you're like, no. And I'm like, okay, good. It's just me. But also, everything hurts. That is not my favorite thing. My favorite thing is I really have enjoyed a lot of what the marketing for Borderlands 3 has been doing.
Yeah, they've been killing it.
Now, some of it has been a little bit like the Happy Together trailer that they hyped up, but it was just a fun trailer. Like, if they hadn't hyped it up, it would have been fine. So there are some decisions I think are questionable, but what I have loved is they've been releasing, the past 2 weeks, they've been releasing on Monday and Thursday, they've been releasing a character trailer.
Yeah.
Each day, going into some of the backstory of each character and kind of showing off not only some of their abilities, but also some of their personality, and specifically featuring the voice actors themselves, which we haven't really heard much of yet, other than through like the gameplay trailer or gameplay streams and stuff like that. Yeah,
whatever you call them. Yes.
So so they first did Zane, and then they did Moze, and then this week they did Amara on Monday, and they finally revealed stuff about Flak, because Flak, they have been holding off his gameplay stuff until Gamescom, but like they finally showed, like
I wonder why they held him last.
So I know that I know that Borderlands 3 was delayed because they were having trouble getting one of the characters' abilities to work correctly. And it actually delayed everything, including the marketing. And I think the theory is that it's Flax because they're having trouble getting the pets to work correctly, because the pets are permanent.
Yeah, they're just around you all the time.
They're around you all the time, unlike Death Trap or Bloodwing, where they're summoned in, do an ability, and then disappear. Yeah, now they're like permanently with you. And I think they're having a hard time getting that programmed correctly with whatever engine they were using. But
interesting.
Yeah, so I think that's probably why because they probably have been tuning him a lot. Working a lot on the tuning. Anyways, the trailers have been great. Specifically the Flak one, mostly because I was excited because they finally showed off his voice actor and gave a little bit of like his personality. And so that one just dropped today, and I was just like stoked. So I've been trying really hard to not go into every little bit of Borderlands 3 news over the past summer, because every time we get on the podcast. But those character trailers are really cool. If you are in any way a Borderlands fan or excited about the game,
Go check them
out, because it'll be helpful to, obviously you want to pick a character based on like what abilities interest you, but also I find like personality of the character can be a tipping point.
Yeah.
So you should go through and kind of see which characters have a personality that fits with you. So it's just more than they've ever done with a Borderlands game in regards to character before, because Borderlands 2, they hadn't like, it wasn't until like the DLCs that they had really even like had the characters talk back to the NPCs. The only time the characters would ever talk is when they would like do their abilities or whatever, and you'd hear their like echoes or whatever is when they had time. So then they started doing that and adding more personality to the characters, more interactions. Yeah. So now it's like they're doing backstory too. Sweet. The only next step is like, I really hope, and we might not see it in this game, but I really hope they would like do specific quests to character specific quests. Like you get to a point in the main campaign, and then it's like, hey, depending on what character you're playing, you have to go off and do this thing. That'd be really cool. But I don't think they're doing that in this one, but still. You never know. So, that's that.
What if they did a full DLC
around like each character? That would be awesome. They're doing four DLCs. But then again, I also like there's so many like characters in Borderlands now after 2, 3, 4 games, including Tales from the Borderlands. Yeah. There's so many characters that many of which at least could have DLCs entirely of their own. Yeah, they could. Especially the old Vault Hunters and stuff.
I'd like to see one on Roland. That'd be great.
But he's no, stop. Don't say those things. I do hope they do another Bunkers and Badasses, but
yeah, that'd be sweet.
All right, that's favorite things. Now we can move on to DLC.
Speaking of DLC, the unloadable content.
Yeah. Speaking of,
we just talked about Borderlands DLC.
Yeah. Oh yeah. DLC is
Are you here?
Usually, as we move on to each segment, I sort of take the last segment and just erase it from my brain, whatever we were talking about. DLC is a time for us to have a little discussion about games you wouldn't normally have. Today, I want to just celebrate the fact that we have 100 episodes. We've been doing this we'll have our
100 episodes.
We'll have our 2-year anniversary. Technically 101 if you consider episode 0, but still, this is the 100 proper main episodes. Yeah. And, Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's just fun. So, first of all, thank you, listeners. We have seen incredible growth over the last
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
Just really this year. Yeah, we've seen a lot of growth, and you guys are out there talking us up, which is great.
Yes.
So we're super thankful for just all that you guys are doing. We don't even know. Like, I can't even account for the growth that we've had. You know what I mean? Like, it would be one thing if it's like, oh yeah, and I can kind of, in the early days, it was like we'd see the number of listens we would have each week and be like, oh yeah, we can probably count who those people are based on who we know.
Life. Right.
But now it's like, I don't even know who's listening to us. Right. I don't even know where these hits are coming from. So yeah, just as a thank you, part of our DLC is just sort of a thank you, a celebration of the fact that we're doing this because of you guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're doing it for us as well, but we're also, like, part of our motivation is, like, we've got listeners out there who apparently like what we do. So.
Yep. And it's even hilarious to find that I'll do social media pushes and I'll throw content out on Instagram, Facebook, and Reddit, and the numbers won't change a bit. And then there's weeks that I'm crazy busy and I just kind of neglect social media for a couple days. And in those days where I'm doing nothing, we get spikes in listeners.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing
really
something
encouraging.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, cool. But I'm not going to leave you hanging. I know that DLC is about fun discussions and not just fan service. So, as a celebration of 100 episodes for 80-Bit Podsmash, Termite and I are going to, those who are longtime listeners will know that we often talk about certain games a lot.
Yes, we do.
They come up frequently, almost every episode in some cases.
We've talked about them 101 times.
We have talked about them a lot. So as a celebration for 100 episodes, we're going to pick the 100 most talked about games. No, I'm kidding. We're not going to do 100.
And we're going to sit through and list them all and review them.
And yeah, that's the whole episode. Yeah.
No.
We weren't talking about generations. No, we're just going to do 10. We're going to do the top 10 most talked about games on 80-Bit Podsmash. So it'll be easiest. I was thinking about starting at 10 and then work, but now I was thinking, but what if we think of different ones?
Does it have to be in order?
I think we should at least just talk about the order of the number. We can get loosey goosey with the order as we get further down the list, but I definitely think that the number one there is a number one most talked about game.
Are you sure it doesn't? It's not 2?
I don't know. There are 2. There's two close. Yeah,
there's 2.
Yeah,
that's why I didn't want to really rank them, but we should just talk about the 10.
I would say the top 2 for sure are Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild
and World of Warcraft.
Now, Legend of Zelda, because this podcast started the year. So, the fall after that game was released. We had been talking about doing a podcast and working out the details, but it wasn't till that fall that we actually got started.
Right.
So, Zelda was just fresh of our mind. Yeah, it was fresh in our mind. And also, it's a great game. Mm-hmm. So, it just comes up as an example for a lot of good games and good game choices and good game
design. It's one of those industry-changing games.
Yeah.
It comes in and it makes statements.
And since it's so fresh, it's okay. Yeah,
we're still
going to be talking about it. Yep, exactly. Yeah,
so that's tier 1. We'll just break them into tiers. 10 games over some tiers. So tier 1 are those 2 games for sure.
World of Warcraft we talk a lot about because I have a long history with World of Warcraft, and similarly, it is a industry changing.
I played it for game 8 years or so.
But it also serves as a good example for a lot of different topics because it's just a big game and it's had lots of changes over the years, and I just, as I've talked about,
come up again tonight.
As I've talked about on this podcast, it was a game that it was the only game I played for a very long time.
Yeah.
Almost an entire console generation I spent playing World of Warcraft and not playing cool games like BioShock and stuff like that. So, speaking of BioShock,
hey, tier 2.
Tier 2, games we come up frequently,
God of War.
Not every episode. God of War, BioShock,
Horizon Zero
Dawn, yeah.
Now we're at 5 games.
And we talk about those because they're usually good examples of good artistic choices or storytelling choices. Yeah. And since that's a frequent topic or adjacent topic on our show, those games are going to come up a lot.
They're good standards.
And I would say I would add another one to that, a fourth one to that.
Yeah.
But not necessarily for those same reasons, but Borderlands.
Oh, yeah.
And that's mostly, again, a lot of that, like I said, has been due to the fact that Borderlands 3 was coming up.
Yeah, we had an interview with A-Ray way back, before Borderlands 3 was officially announced, and we speculated that that's what he was doing mocap for. Yeah. We never got any confirmation about that.
I would say, actually, we can probably separate that into a different tier, and I would say tier 3 are games that we've been talking about because they've had new entries coming out, and I would say the top 2 on those are Borderlands 3 and Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Yeah.
Smash Bros. Comes up a lot. Anyways,
It's
the
our
whole
title.
franchise, because, it's part of our title.
80-bit Podsmash is derived from Smash Bros.
Absolutely,
so, of course, yeah.
It's our favorite fighting game, one of my favorite Nintendo games.
Yep.
And it just what it is as an entity, like a game that pulls together probably more intellectual properties than any other game that can think of. Just that very nature of it, the fact that it acts sort of as a museum is going to mean it's going to come up in discussion.
That was my favorite thing about Smash Bros. It's like a museum for Nintendo. You just go through the entire history of everything.
It's kind of a museum for gaming now.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Now it's turning into more. How many games are we at? 7? What was the 2? Smash Bros. And
Smash Bros. And Borderlands was 6 and 7.
Okay,
so 8, 9, 10. We got 3 more. I'd say Diablo gets talked about pretty frequently.
Yeah,
the franchise. Mario, whether
Definitely,
it's Super Mario 64,
Mario Sunshine,
and
Odyssey,
and a 10th. What's that 10th? What do we talk about a lot? I would say like Call of Duty comes up derogatorily, like almost always. Any episode that we talk about Call of Duty, it's mostly to be like, like your Call of Duties or whatever.
Right.
So
it's so easy to. That's funny you mentioned that. My brother got me a book for my birthday, which will be a favorite thing at some point as I continue down my backlog of favorite things.
Yeah.
But it's How Nintendo Took Over the World, written by, I think his name is Jack Ryan, but that could be a BioShock character.
Jack Ryan is like a Tom Clancy character that he's played by Jim.
His author.
Played by Jim in the author.
Okay, I gotcha.
Anyway, Amazon. There's an Amazon show.
In that book, they describe Mario in gaming across the world and how like Nintendo's different, and they actually used Call of Duty derogatorily as well. And I was like, man, what if I was a Call of Duty designer and I was reading this? I'd be like, man, stop pooping on my game. Call of Duty gets a lot of bad.
It does get a lot
rep,
of flack,
but it's not bad.
It's only because of what it. It's more Call of Duty gets more of a bad rap because of the way that Activision has treated it.
It's an annualized franchise that's shoved down our throats every single year, and they don't change enough or innovate enough to make it like it sells ridiculously well. It's so popular and it's crazy.
It's almost that like it's damned by its own success because of the way they monetize it. And its popularity is just so backwards to me. As someone an auteur of video games, I'm like,
But the Modern Warfare's campaigns are awesome. You totally should check those out if you ever have a chance to breeze through them because they're pretty short.
Yeah, fair. All right, well that's DLC. I think we ranked our most talked about. And you want to go through them one more time? The ones we came up with.
Horizon Zero Dawn.
No.
Wow.
Breath of the Wild, World of Warcraft, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, BioShock.
That's 5.
Borderlands.
6. Smash Bros.
7. Yeah. 8 was Mario. 9 was
Diablo.
And 10 would be Call of Duty. Yeah.
There you go.
That's
we
our
made
list.
It.
Woo!
That's
DLC. Again, just thank you all for listening to us.
Like, are you a cat? Meow, 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 meow.
That's it. So for the next 100 episodes, DLC is going to no longer be rap horns. It's going to be cat
horns.
Meow, 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 meow. We should just abruptly change it one day.
And not say a word about it like we just did.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, how about that?
Oh, that happened organically. Anyways, tonight we are going to rip off The Who and talking about my generation.
That's The Who?
That's The Who, yeah. I should look it up today because it was stuck in my head as I was doing the notes.
Yeah.
I was like, who does that song? The Who. Generation. Yep. So we're talking about, again, we did a whole episode on console generation, so I want to say from the start, we're not talking about console generations. We're talking about human generations. So there's things that happen where people are born around the same time and therefore experience a lot of the same things and therefore kind of have their personalities in some way shaped by just the fact they were born at a certain time. So a couple disclaimers. Number one, I'm really bad at math, so I might throw out like names and ages at some point.
And you're going to be off.
So feel free to correct me and lambast my terrible improvised math skills.
Hey, at least you're not an alcohol pusher hypocrite.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's true. I was like, are you like lambasting baby boomers right now or something?
No.
Like, I didn't know what was going on.
My jokes aren't that deep.
Yeah, and then number 2, of course, disclaimer is that, of course, you're a unique and special butterfly, and you're not defined by your generation, and a lot of, like, stereotypes on generations are over-exaggerated that we might lean into some of those over-exaggerated. So we're going to try to be as fair as possible and talk about, like, here are things that happen to these generations, and therefore they are more likely to behave like this, but we know there's exceptions. We know there are people who completely fall outside of the mouth. So we're not trying to like pin you down and say, you're going to definitely act like this and you're going to behave like this. We're literally just saying exactly trends and overall things. So
correlations, trends.
Yes. So we also know that you're a special butterfly and can't be pinned down by whatever.
I mean, I'm a millennial.
2 people on the internet say.
People say that and doesn't bother me none. I'm an old millennial.
Cool. So let's start then. We're talking about our generation. What is our generation? I guess the other way that we framed this conversation is just how does our generation differ in the way they treat games than other generations? So if we're going to start by talking about our generation, what are we, Termite?
You and I both are millennials.
Both are millennials.
We were born between the years of 1977 and 1995.
Yeah, I generally hate the term millennial only because before, it really didn't start becoming, like, we were called Generation Y for half my life. And then the internet came out. Came out as if it was released. Right. Then the internet became a thing, and because of the way the internet has affected Generation Y, and because we just happened to be around during the turn of the millennium, like the term millennial started to get thrown around in like the mid 2000s, and then just got picked up by the media, and became a whole thing on and of itself.
And that bothers you?
The term millennial has like so many negative connotations. It frustrates me, especially older millennials.
So you were just projecting onto our audience.
I am.
You're the one that's offended here.
I am really offended. No, the older millennials who are like, again, those late 70s and 80s babies like us. I'm like, we were Generation Y. I was always told I was Generation Y, and that's like, you're a millennial. I'm like, I'm not a millennial. It's those 90s babies. Those are the ones. Those are the worst.
Only half of the 90s babies, because 95 is when it ended.
Yeah. So, but yes, for the sake of the podcast, I will just sort of embrace the millennial identity at this point and say we're millennials. So
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with it too. But let's break down the different generations so that our listeners, if we're going to talk about our generation and how we're different, we also have to contrast that by talking about the other generations.
Okay. Do you want to start older to newer or newest to oldest?
Let's do oldest to newest. So we'll start in our case, we have it ordered. That would be the bottom up.
Yes.
So, cool.
Traditionalists. Or silent generation.
Yeah, I've heard of these. Are these called the greatest generation? There's one generation that's called the greatest generation. No, maybe that was before the traditionalist.
I heard that you can take a meta approach to all generations, and every 4 generations you get the greatest generation. And if that's the case, then that traditionals or silent generation would be the greatest.
Yeah, there was a generation though that's called the greatest generation, and they were the ones who fought during World War II, which is why they were the greatest generation. So I guess this one wouldn't be that because these were born in 1945, which was halfway through World War.
So baby boomers
too. So I guess they were. Yeah, this is the generation.
That's weird. I have no research on this. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, it has to be. I copy and paste this from another website, so maybe 1945 and before. So yeah, this would be people who would be born. They would have been born before World War II, and so therefore they would be more likely to have fought in World War II because they would have been teenagers. So yeah, this is the greatest generation. Or not this is, but the silent generation I think is also can be known as the greatest generation. So the defining factor is they fought in World War II.
Right.
So they were either children or teenagers during World War II. So
knowing that video games came out in the 70s, they would have been like in their late 30s, 40s.
Right. Very few of them are even still alive. Yeah, exactly. So most of this generation has sort of already died off, but they would have been old. They would have been like in their 50s or 60s when games came out. So they would have been. And
doubtful that they would have latched onto them.
More than likely, the only interaction they would have had with them would have been like buying them for their grandkids.
Right. Or seeing them in arcades.
Yeah.
It's kind of the 70s arcade boom.
Yeah, a few of them may have been involved in the creation of original video games, but I can't think of any I can't think of anybody involved in that off the top of my head that was involved in like the computer movement. We just had an episode about the 70s.
Yeah, that's fresh in my mind.
Yeah, exactly. And so I can't think of any of them that were involved in that. So that's the silent generation. After them came the baby boomers. So these
Hi, Mom and Dad.
Exactly. The baby boomers were born in from 1946 to 1964. So in the 70s, they, most of them would have been teenagers or young adults when games were just starting to emerge. Our
parents love Pong and Atari. I think they almost all talk about, hey, I remember playing Pong.
Yeah, I was going to say, so similar to the previous generation, they probably didn't interact very fondly with games. they were mostly the parents of people who were playing games in the 70s. So it's 70s, and well, maybe not the 70s, but definitely the 80s. They were parents of. So they are the ones who are now entering the sort of like retirement age. There was a big thing.
Yeah.
So they're called baby boomers because it was a big, anytime there's a lot of babies being born in any given time frame, they call it a baby boom.
Yeah.
So there's a big uptick in the birth rate.
Yeah, because the soldiers came home.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a big uptick in the birth rate, and so they were called baby boomers because it was a baby boom in the late 40s and throughout the 50s. So
So they're 55 and older now, and those consumers represent 26% of all gamers, as the ESA reports.
that's crazy.
It's almost a quarter of every gamer. At 23%, this age group represents the largest mobile gaming segment, according to Tapjoy's report, The Changing Face of Mobile Games.
That is actually a really interesting statistic to me. I didn't know about that.
Yep. A quarter of all mobile gaming is happening in
From baby
people.
boomers.
People
So
are
I mean,
55 and older.
I can see in
Almost
one
a quarter.
regard, like baby boomers are, they're in their 50s, they're nearing retirement age. They've probably accumulated a lot of wealth.
Yep.
They can spend money on not just purchasing mobile games, but purchasing microtransactions. They probably can, in a lot of ways, get the most out of microtransactions for mobile games. Plus, to them, they're just playing with their cool phone.
Right. Like my mom plays solitaire on her tablet for hours.
Right, yeah.
And that's
So
a
it's
mobile game.
It's not gaming to them. They're just occupying their time
Right.
with their phone.
Right.
But it's a game.
Right.
I can see that. Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know about that detail, those statistics.
Dude, parents love Candy Crush.
They do.
Yeah.
Or Farmville, whatever.
Yep.
Cool. So after the baby boomers came Gen X, Generation X.
Born between 1965 and 1976. According to the ESA, the average gamer is 35 years old. This generation remembers when playing video games cost a quarter and a home game console had wood paneling.
Yeah, so these were the, I mean, we just talked about the 70s again.
Yep.
These were the kids who were playing games in the 70s, who were playing those and going to arcades and stuff like that. The Gen Xers would become the kids of the 80s. They would become that sort of like anti-authoritarian, sort of that aggressive, that sort of start of like teen rebel culture that kind of came out of
80s
those
hair metal bands.
Yeah.
Consuming all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I always grew up, all the Gen Xers would like talk about how they were Gen Xers and how it was best to be Gen X because Gen X bucked up against authority. They weren't sellouts like the baby boomers, like all of that. So, but now Gen Xers are well into their 30s and 40s and they're entering, there was a whole period of time where the Gen Xers became parents and stuff and started families. But in regards to games, they're
actually the lowest percentage of all gamers. They represent 18% of all gamers. And
that's as of,
I don't remember where I pulled the data from. I have links.
Probably as of at least the 2010 sometime in the last few years.
Yeah. And they are 19% of all mobile gamers.
I'd be interesting to see what the statistics have changed over time because I imagine the Gen Xers were the ones, they had jobs and disposable incomes during the 90s and 2000s. So they probably, they in a lot of ways may have been partially responsible as young adults for the sort of like dark, gritty, violent video games of the 2000s. So that's interesting. Cool. That's Gen X. Then it's us, finally, the millennials or Gen Y. We were born from 1977 to 1995, as we mentioned earlier, and we... What you said, 21% of mobile games, and we are the largest segment
of gamers.
Of all
29%.
29%.
Almost
That's
a
not
third.
that much.
Yeah.
I would have thought we were like 50%.
Yeah.
But we're not. We're not that much. I guess it's because, again, we're getting older and have more responsibilities.
And the next generation's coming.
Yeah. So I think the big thing about millennials that is notable that we'll talk about is the fact that we grew up during the technological boom. We grew up. We started with Game Boys.
Statistics were pulled in 2017.
Oh, there you go.
Started with Game Boys.
Yeah, we started with Game Boys and now have Switches. We started with Game Boys and now have cell phones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we started with Atari or NESs and now we have PlayStation 4s. Like
we saw all of it.
We saw all of it. We saw
except for the Atari.
Many of the major movements that we talk about in gaming that Termite and I have talked about in various episodes of the podcast. We lived through them.
Yep.
And we also can remember a time. We can both remember a time there was no internet. And remember
that's
time
the
there
biggest,
wasn't.
That's the biggest
so
difference.
We'll talk a lot about that.
Especially with consoles, internet-connected consoles, that affected us more than anything.
Yeah. Cool. And so then after us, Gen Y is
the babies.
Millennials, the babies. They're known as, I've heard Gen Z is mostly the most.
I like iGen.
One. I like iGen too. Yeah, the iGen Centennials. I've heard as well.
Centennials.
That's
Yeah,
there.
but
It's
how?
listed there, but I've never.
How? Because a centennial is like today's
It's the start
episode
of a
of
new
80 Bit
century.
Podsmash.
Kinda
100, I thought.
Yeah, it is. So it would be like a centennial would be like new century.
That would be 2100.
Oh yeah.
Millennials are the turn of the
20
millennial.
Yeah,
That
maybe
doesn't
it's
make any
because
sense
they'll
to
live.
me.
Maybe it's because they'll live to 2100.
Maybe, yeah, actually.
or they could live to
Potentially.
2100. Yeah.
Huh.
So, anyways, it's anyone
Anyway.
born after 1996 and TBD.
Yeah, to be determined.
I mean, most of Gen Z is now is like they've been in high school for a while and now they're starting. The big question is what's going to happen when Gen Z enters the workforce, and Gen Z is sort of defined by the fact they don't know a time without smartphones or internet,
Right.
Because they were born after, like they were either born just before the internet boom or they were
Yeah.
born well after.
They've
it.
never experienced the world without video games either.
Yeah, exactly. So
Mhm.
cool.
And, well, we're statistics. Generation Z represents 14% of mobile gamers, which is small, and 27% of all gamers. So if you take millennials at 29% and Gen Z at 27%, you're at 56% of gamers are in just those two generations.
Wow,
Of all gamers across
Yeah.
the entire world.
that
They're all
is not surprising to me though.
From, 1977 or newer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me either. But
Cool.
you talked about how you were surprised by how small the number was for millennials. Well, it's because Gen Z exists.
Gen Z. Yep, that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah.
So we were the kings.
Probably.
And now our
We're
children
being outnumbered.
or not even our children, Gen X's children.
Right.
They're outnumbering us.
Yes.
All right. So we promised we'd focus mostly on millennials because it's talking about my generation, not any of those other generations.
Hey.
So let's talk about millennials. What is unique about millennials? About how we game and how we interact with gaming culture, and what changes have we gone through that have altered our attitudes towards and habits.
As
gaming.
you alluded to earlier, the millennials saw the change of the advent of and the maturation of the internet.
Right. We both remember a time. It's like that. It's the idea of like we have fond memories of childhood, just playing with pogs, or trading cards, and going outside and playing kickball, while also
And 4-player GoldenEye.
and 4-player GoldenEye, and then we also remember the emergence of Angry Birds and cell phones and cell phone games and all that stuff. So we have really seen it all. At least so far. I said we've seen it all.
Yeah, we really have when it comes to
to entertainment for sure.
Excuse me. So what changes have millennials gone through that have altered our attitudes or habits towards gaming? It starts with how we interact with each other, and especially over the internet medium, we saw the time where we relied on word of mouth gaming magazines or AOL chat rooms. But when it comes to communicating about games, we have evolved. Now we have YouTube videos devoted to social platforms like Twitch, where games are live streamed and chatted about all in real time. And I'm reading half of that and sort of doing my own editorializing article I will link off to when I describe that. So we'll give credit to where credit is due.
Absolutely.
So we're not completely all of my ideas. But we, so that was a huge change to us when our PS2s, Xboxes, and to be GameCubes and Dreamcasts all connected online, and we had our little headsets and we could start talking to each other real time. Mm-hmm. That was a monumental shift, and it kind of shaped how we partake of games.
Yeah.
And so when we were little, bigger games that required research or time we could do, but then once the internet came out and we could get all of our instant gratification receptors like tickled for the rest of our late teenage college years, and we could look stuff up online and we could ask our friends real time online, what do you do to get past this part? What do you do to get past this? That suddenly our patience drops, and now you can look at the shift in games and how outside of the big open world like slow drudgery games, if you take Final Fantasy XI as an MMO and you compare it to World of Warcraft, it is a night and day difference. Yeah. And that's why I mentioned we're going to talk about World of Warcraft soon, because even World of Warcraft's progression from vanilla to today, what have they done? They have stripped and streamlined and increased the speed of everything. And decreased the complexity of everything.
Not to say that we millennials don't have our gripes about the way games have changed. You've heard many of them from Termite and I over the course of the time period. But I do think that we have been all things considered, been very flexible with the changing. I think it's because technology changes such a breakneck pace from between the late 90s and the 2010s that we were forced to just sort of adapt to each new innovation, each new change. We lost some things along the way, but we've gotten some of that stuff back. And I think that we've sort of just kind of dealt with the ebbs and flows better than I think a lot of the other generations so far. Now, granted, we have 2 generations on our list that barely even have interacted with gaming. But then, like, I think about Gen Xers, I think a lot of the people that I would always hear growing up complaining about the state of gaming and the state of the way things are were like Gen Xers who were like, they were more resistant to the change because they didn't experience as much change in that arena over the course of their lives than we did, because we were shaped by it.
Right.
I remember getting my first cell phone, and I remember it being some janky flip phone, and I also remember like 4 or 5 other phones before I even got a smartphone. And then since I got a smartphone, good Lord, I've had like a new one of those every year.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Now it's like all the time.
Exactly. So it's just like, whereas, yes, those other generations can remember. They probably remember in more vivid detail when they got their first phones because it was later in life for them.
Right.
But like, yeah, they never had a phone. The phone they had growing up was a rotary phone or a phone, just a landline.
Right.
You know what I mean? So having to remember when you had to talk to your friends on the phone, you had to call their house and talk to their parents first or whoever answered the phone.
Yes,
I still also remember that. Yep. It's crazy.
Or if they were a dial-up family, they had to make sure they weren't on the internet.
Oh yeah, I remember picking up the phone and hearing dee dee dee.
Yep. You're like, oh.
Or hearing someone else picking up the phone and hearing someone else's conversation, whatever they're in the middle of talking of. Get off the phone.
Yeah, now millennials just want to text.
Every millennial has their own. Every millennial has their own cell phone. So and texting, emojis. I feel like emojis are more of a Gen Z thing, but
it's bleeding up. We're getting it.
It is. We're getting it.
And that's the interesting aspect too. Just talk about attitudes and habits towards gaming and interacting with others. It's easy for millennials kind of started from the chat room foundation and moving on to online interaction. So it's normal and natural for us to pick up and progress with how we interact online.
Right. And there was we've seen, and like I said, sort of the adaptableness of our generation, the flexibility. When you had just chat rooms in AOL, the ability to type quickly was important.
Right.
So we were the ones who created those U, the letter U for you, and R, exactly.
Yeah.
We were the ones who created all the shortcuts for language. But then a wonderful piece of technology came out called autocorrect.
Yep.
And now it's actually we've shifted, especially because we're also older too. Now it's seen as juvenile to continue to use that kind of internet lingo, because you have autocorrect, you lazy person. Just let it, or autofill and stuff like that. So let it, and predictive text and all that stuff to make it easier to quickly create text-based conversation without sounding like an idiot.
Yep.
To put it frankly.
And being able to, if you don't have a microphone, chat with someone online by typing in onto the screen. While tedious, it's an acceptable way of communicating for us, where I feel like older generations would want you to not communicate through the console, but text them individually as a person, get to know them. I feel like our millennial generation would be the first one to kind of be okay with online friends. Whereas the older generation above us, Gen X's and baby boomers,
super suspicious
would be very suspicious of internet activity and friends when you don't know who they are.
Yeah, but then again, I also think but we've also changed over time. And because of hearing stories all throughout the 2010s of catfishing and strangers you meet on the internet, I think a lot of ways our attitudes even there have changed. But it's also, I would say us millennials are responsible in a lot of ways for the erosion of the sort of real life. I don't talk to my neighbors.
Right.
I'm totally millennial in that regard. I don't talk to and meet my neighbors. I should. I want to. Right. But there's sort of a general distrust of people close to us because most of the, again, it's easier to find people online that you jive with and just sort of engage in online communities.
Yeah.
So whereas older generations, I think, to their credit, if you lived in a small town, you were forced to interact with those people in the small town. It taught you how to adapt socially. Whereas now you can just be I'm not going to talk to you at all. I'm just going to talk to my online friends who get all my weird quirks. There is a skill in being able to be oh no, yes, I have my weird quirks and the weird things I'm into, but I can also sort of put all that aside and engage in just sort of basic human interaction with the people around me. But our generation is not good at that.
Yeah. And I also think, talking about how we interact with gaming, millennials still put gaming as a hobby for the most part. It's still a side thing. It doesn't take up our identity or our life yet. We'll get there with Gen Z.
Yeah.
And Gen Xers, I feel almost look down on gamers.
Yeah.
Because like you're wasting your time. What are you doing? There's all this other stuff and productivity things you can be doing to bolster.
Be changing the world, yo.
Right. And
they
look at gaming as a waste of time or a waste of like effort when it comes to, you could be reading a book to better yourself, or there's so much stuff you could be doing instead of games that they don't really.
Yeah, and boomers too. Well, boomers are the ones who think that gaming is making us violent, so there's that.
yeah, that's happening. Right.
But they're all playing Temple Run, so I don't see a bunch of wannabe Indiana Joneses from the baby boomers
running around, jumping over gaps, tapping on your phone angrily. Yeah. It's like all of these things. Again, as you caveated earlier, there's definitely exceptions to the rules,
for sure.
to all of this stuff. But
just because you were born in that time period doesn't mean that we are very much stereotyping when we kind of talk about these things.
Yep.
Cool. Well, let's talk about then let's spend a little bit of time. I'm not going to go crazy, but let's spend a lot of time talking about those other generations and contrast them with us to make ourselves look better.
No, I don't know, man.
Right,
Gen Z people are pretty cool.
Yeah, so how do the other generations interact with gaming, and how do you expect this will change as these generations, or do you expect this will change as all of the generations age, as we all get older and we all go through life changes? What do you expect will change in the future?
68% of Gen Z males agree that gaming is an important part of their identity. For this generation, gaming transcends a hobby and is in fact a primary means of identifying themselves.
That is crazy to me. Can I interject and just say, these are Gen Z kids, so these are kids who are in like high school or younger, or college and younger.
Yeah.
I got picked on for playing games and identifying as a gamer in school.
Yep.
It's so frustrating to me. These kids are like, oh, no, yeah, I'm a gamer. Cool, I respect that. I got beat up.
A vital facet of their social lives, component of their media habits, and driver of their brand choices are all
brand
video
choices.
game. Yeah.
Interesting.
Video game related. Funny you say this. It is obvious that our culture is becoming like video gaming is now it's not a side thing to say. It's not like, oh, you're a gamer because you play games. It's like, no one says you're a reader because you read books. No one says you're a movie watcher because you go to the theater.
Right, it's just becoming ubiquitous with entertainment. Yeah.
People just watch movies. People just read books.
Right.
It's going to be people just play games.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
More and more. I mean, there's also the people who are like, I mean, you could say like, oh, he's a big movie buff.
Yeah,
because he's like really into
enthusiasts.
Movies. And so so the gamer identity is going to be moved more and more into this sort of realm of enthusiast.
Yep.
As
just like bookworms.
Yep, bookworms.
Yeah, movie enthusiasts.
Movie buffs. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all kind of being pushed by Gen Z because they are identifying as gamers. So it'd be weird to go to one of them and say, "Oh, you're a gamer."
Well, and then they also
be like, "No, I play games all the time." That makes me. I'm not going to label that.
Yeah. Gen Z, and I guess to some degree millennials, but I think it's mostly Gen Z is responsible for the streaming, the watching. They interact with gaming in a way that my generation growing up would find
strange,
really alien. Yeah, because I mean, like I've said on the podcast before, I watched people play games, but that's because they had the controller and wouldn't let me have it, right? Because it was theirs. You know what I mean? So whenever I was forced to watch someone play a game, it was I had to be forced into it. Now they voluntarily, like part of their gaming repertoire is, I'm going to watch someone play games today. I'm going to spend my time doing that instead of playing those games.
Right.
Now, granted, maybe you don't have the game. I can understand that.
And you want to see it. Right?
Yeah. So maybe
or they're
in
really
some
good
regards,
and you want tips and
right.
tricks.
Yeah. So in some regards, I can understand it. In some regards, these are kids, so they're coping with the fact that they don't have disposable incomes to just drop on whatever newest game is awesome. So they will watch it on someone else play it online and enjoy it vicariously. But it's still strange to be like, okay, well, in some cases they actually have the game.
Right.
Play it.
As we try to ramp up our Twitch strategy and get ourselves out there,
so please
that we
come
can be
watch
watched.
us play games too.
Although some have categorized Gen Z as antisocial, it seems more so that socialization has evolved and communication has been digitized to mediums like text messaging, social media, and now gaming. This immersion in digital communication, specifically around gaming, provides a myriad of opportunities for brands and marketers to enter into Gen Z's gaming dialogue.
Yeah, I do. I think it'll be interesting to see, like I said, and it's part of our question. It's going to be interesting to see how the impact Generation Z has on gaming as they get older. And again, they're just about to start. They're finishing up high school, finishing up college. These kids are going to start entering the workforce soon and have disposable incomes. No kids yet.
Right. What is their buying habits?
Marriage, no weddings.
What are their
buying habits going to be, and how are they going to shape the gaming industry? And we've talked, again, one of my predictions is that they're going to end physical media.
Yeah, yeah, they will.
Because they why would you buy a disc? Why would you buy a DVD when you have Netflix?
Right.
Why would you buy a CD to listen to music on when you have an iPad or an iPhone or Spotify? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm too old. I'm talking 2005 here. Spotify. You can just stream
from any device.
From any device. Why would you buy a physical copy of anything?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to translate into their buying habits when they start to buy games. And digital sales are going to skyrocket to the point where us old fogey millennials won't be able to wield our, we won't be able to pull a 2012 like we did back when the Xbox One was announced to have no physical media and say, "Are you kidding me? We're not going to buy that crap."
Right.
They're going to say, "Okay, Gen Z's gonna."
Right. And after that too.
And they have more income because you all millennials have kids now.
Right.
Can't afford crap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
it's interesting to think about for sure. And Google Stadia is kind of investing in that now. Mm-hmm. And so is Microsoft's Project X Cloud.
Yep.
Like they're starting that whole thing.
Yeah.
Let's get the video games into the same format as Spotify, Netflix, and Hulu and HBO and all the Disney Plus has come in. Like everything's moving in that direction.
Yeah. And I'm
Gaming
interested
is
to
the
see,
last one.
Yeah,
but
I'm interested to see, like, again, talking about other generations, contrasting them and seeing how they've aged.
Mm-hmm.
We can look, but in the same way that we can look forward to what the effects that Generation Z has, we can also look back and look at the baby boomers and Generation X. And again, it's fascinating to me that baby boomers are apparently playing a ton of mobile games.
Yeah.
And comprise a large percentage of that. So the effect of these now retired individuals, I think we can see, maybe we'll be able to see a similar thing happen with Gen X, but maybe it's not going to be mobile games. Maybe it'll be because, console gaming and esports are having a new resurgence.
Yeah.
Kind of coming back from the mobile game trend. And so maybe it'll be that's what they'll be spending their income on when they're retiring, Generation X. And then, of course, our generation, what's going to happen when we start to retire, when we, who have been the largest driving, motivating factor for gaming culture and gaming industry for the last...
Right. We'll have retirement homes with gaming centers.
Yeah, exactly. I think I saw something that was like retirement homes are going to be a bunch of people playing Smash Bros. With Office reruns in the background.
Yes.
That's exactly what's going to happen. Yeah, I'll be interested to see, will our generation start to ease off on gaming? Will we become more jaded towards it? Or will we be eating it up? And
I would imagine we'd still be eating it up.
Yeah, I think so too.
Whatever kind of hobbies or things you get into in your 20s kind of stay with you.
And I'd be interested to see, and I think I mentioned this on the podcast too, is that I'd be interested to see what kinds of games are going to be coming out targeting our demographic now that we're, are we going to get a bunch of old grandpa Space Marines instead of like young buff Space Marines?
Right. So millennials like us are having games developed by... What's the generation older? Gen Xers. Yeah. And so I think, and a mixture of millennials and Gen Xers are in the workforce now making games. And so all the stuff that's hitting Game of the Year, we'll just hit that. Like what is one Game of the Year in the last couple of years? Well, God of War won last year. And Breath of the Wild won the year before that.
Told you they'd come up.
Yeah, they would. And those games were made by Gen Xers and millennials. And what are they? That one Zelda is a perfect realization of what the original Zelda was to be, which we would have all grown up with. So a nostalgic pull. And God of War is almost the epitome of what you can do with modern cinematic storytelling.
And also the main protagonist is a grizzled old.
Right.
Like even we're even starting to explore more with like the ages of protagonists. Because in the 2000s, they were all like young 20, 30 something Space Marines.
Yeah.
And now... protagonists are starting, we're starting to see, we've talked about that on the podcast too, we're starting to see more older people, more people of color, people of different sexual orientations and stuff like that. Like we're seeing a bunch more flexibility in what a game protagonist can be based on the fact that as millennials are getting older, and Gen Z, who's going to have entirely different sensibilities towards those things, are going to appreciate more.
The standard like male, female, white colored tropes will be almost gone.
Right.
Gen Z. There'll be so much diversity, and I think there'll be a much better spectrum across the board. Like it'll be more even. So there won't be like roll your eyes at the next white dude who's in a Star Wars game.
Right. Yeah.
That won't even just be there. It'll be like it'll be so even. It'll be so woven into the fabric of those games and telling those stories and those struggles. We also have like a destigmatization of various illnesses that previous generations kind of rolled their eyes at or stubbed their nose up at. Things like mental illness. Yeah. There's more awareness of those things. And the stuff that people go through emotionally that have to do with those ailments. There's like gastroparesis. I can't even say the word. It's a stomach bug that stops your digestive system from working.
Mm-hmm.
And people like the older generations would kind of just be like, go eat a cheeseburger, you're fine. Like, this is all in your head kind of stuff. And again, gross generalization, crazy.
Right,
I know
right.
I'm not putting all Gen Xers in, but I know that there are stigmas attached to various like diseases in previous generations that the millennials are kind of pushing, and now Gen Z is going to fill in.
Right, yeah.
And those types of emotional responses will be reflected in the stories that
We're
will
already
be in the
seeing it,
future of video games.
Sea of Solitude.
Sea of Solitude with
is
the loneliness.
all about depression and loneliness.
And Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice.
Right.
Dealing with
which is an honorable mention of a game that comes up in every
yeah.
yeah.
What is the main mental illness that the game tackles?
Schizophrenia, for sure.
That's it,
yeah.
schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm looking in a way that I've never seen, but never experienced before. That in a way that a game can only do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, as we see an explosion in technology and interconnectivity, we're gonna a destigmatization of other things. Like the world is just changing
right.
as generations progress, and so games will go with it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, as we see more and more, because typically politicians who end up becoming policymakers, they typically end. I think the average. I don't know. I'm pulling this number out of my butt, but I would guess the average is somewhere between 65 and 75 or something like that, or maybe 55 and 75.
Yeah, I would say 50 through 70.
So right now, you've been seeing, baby boomers have been dominating politics and policy for a long time now, and we'll see we've seen Gen Xers enter that as well. As millennials start to enter into that, I think we're going to see really interesting policy changes with a generation who understands gaming in a way that older generations don't. Like baby boomers, in general, don't really get gaming.
Right.
Don't get it.
Yep, they just don't understand.
Millennials understand it intimately, so I'm really
and
interested.
Gen Zers identify it.
Yeah.
With it. I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly.
So the scale is one end to the other, from the oldest generation to the newest.
Right.
And millennials are kind of the wave, the first. The very first adult wave so when we do end up in Washington, our generation does, it'll be the first time the government has ever understood gaming.
Exactly, yeah. And I think we're going to see interesting, again, it may end up in more government control because they're going to have a more vested interest in it. But that might not be a bad thing because the people who are making the policies understand it too. Whereas, oh gosh, it's not a gaming related example, but I just remember the videos that came out of Mark Zuckerberg trying to explain
the internet,
stuff,
to
boomers, to boomer policymakers, and it's just senators and stuff like that. And it's just you just sit there and you just whatever your feelings on Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook are, still watching these videos and just being you not get this, why didn't you get this? But our generation will, because we've grown up with it, not just games, with the internet in general. So it'll be interesting to see the laws and policies that come out.
It'll be interesting to see what we are as old chagrin,
what things will we be ignorant
I don't even
about?
know. What we're gonna be old fogies about. We don't understand this crap.
Right, but I think it's important. Again, each generation is more or less on the whole defined by the things that happened to them while they were alive, most specifically the things that happened to them while they were teenagers and young adults.
Yeah.
And
for us, it was 9/11.
For us, it was not. Well, yeah, it was a lot of things, but 9/11. But specifically in regards to technology and entertainment, which is where gaming kind of intersects. Yeah. We had one of the biggest technological booms. We've seen one of the greatest shifts in entertainment on all ends of the spectrum between movies, games,
right? The Matrix,
all that stuff
that shaped me, man. Saying.
So we just have I think that the fact that our formative years were spent with just leap after leap after leap in technology and culture, that we're gonna be, I'll say, just interesting policymakers. I won't even say good or bad, just really interesting policymakers.
Depends on who you talk to. Yeah, we'll think we're amazing. Gen Zers and younger will think we're old fogies. It's the same paradigm.
It's always the case.
Perpetuity.
Yeah, or it'll be interesting. And sometimes the pendulum swings too. We think of ourselves as really, really a tolerant generation, but maybe the next generation, maybe our kids will be you guys are too crazy about this stuff. Calm down.
Yeah, probably.
There might be a conservative backswing at some point in the younger generations. Probably
it'll
not
be
Gen Z, but maybe the Gen.
It'll be if there is a conservative swing, it would be cater. Like you said, just calm down. Let's all just be cool with each other.
Let's be more moderate. Fine. Oh, I hope that I hope that the younger generations are more moderate.
It'll just be
you guys have taken this a thing. Everything has become too extreme. Right.
Exactly. LGBT is a thing. Let's just not make it a thing, and everyone's fine.
Can we just be moderate about it? Can we just be reasonable about it?
You just do you. And
I think that's what everyone hopes. Every generation is like. Everyone hopes that the next generation is
calms
moderate
down
because they've seen. Yeah, exactly. but then we just get crazy about everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's it. That's the lesson.
I know I have always kind of amused myself by thinking how the pendulum could swing back. They say Gen Zers are isolated, like I read from this article earlier about being antisocial because we're wrapped up into our internet communications and things like text messaging and social media. Now we have DoorDash, like delivery, right? We never have to interact with people. It's all Ubers. The etiquette is not to talk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I wonder if the pendulum will swing back to where people kind of put their phones away and they disconnect on purpose,
right,
and interact with each other.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see again because our kids are not probably Gen Zers.
Right.
The cutoff is probably going to happen before our kids because Gen Z to us is what
Gen X
was to us. Exactly. So most millennials, with a few exceptions, of course, but most millennials do not have Gen X parents. Most millennials have baby boomer parents.
Right.
So in the same way, most Gen Zers don't have millennial parents.
They'll have
Gen X parents.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So our kids, whatever that generation is going to be called, our kids, it'll be interesting because they'll be the ones who
they should be the centennials.
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
But then if you go by the idea of millennials, they're born in 1977, so centennials would technically be born 2077.
Yeah.
Cyberpunk!
So we'll call them the cyberpunk generation.
Yes.
I can dig it, yes. Yeah, whatever it'll be interesting to see how our generation is too, in contrast to...
How many years do these things usually span? 20?
Yeah, something like that.
About 20 years?
Yeah. And the cutoffs are weird too, because you'll
11.
have you'll have, again, like older, if you have the... Gen, because again, it's like when the whole idea is like when were you a teenager,
right?
But like,
why are Gen Xers like 11 years apart? There's only an 11-year span, 1965 to 1976, and baby boomers and millennials are over to almost 20 years of span. Why are Gen X's like cut in half?
Because Gen X is special and cool, and they were so like anti-authoritarian. I think it's probably due to again a lot of those gaps, like bigger, longer, or shorter, probably had to do with again events that happened in that time.
World events.
Sort of like defined, because like the onset of the internet was like, okay, we got to make a cutoff here at some point because these kids are so different from the other kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine something like that. And then World War II,
email,
email. Cool. Well, we're starting to veer off topic, so or ramble. So we can probably stop there. I think we've answered all of our questions.
We did.
And if you were offended by anything we said,
please let us know.
Please let us know, so we can be more sensitive in the future, or we can apologize profusely, or we can say, no, we're going to stand by our statements. But either way, if you are of a different generation than us, or if you even are of our generation and were offended by what we said, we want to hear about it. We want to hear what your feedback is. If you think we were spot on any given thing, or if we were just straight up wrong, factually incorrect, please tell us. And Termite, where can good people on the internet find us?
You can find us at 80bitpodsmash.com, 80bit-podsmash.com. That is our landing website where we have links to Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio, as well as other podcasting platforms of your choice. If we do not exist on a podcast platform that you need us to be on, let us know, and we'll put ourselves there. I would love to be able to get into the ears of anyone and not allow a platform to be a restricting agent. You can also find us on social media platforms such as Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, and Twitter. Everything we post is through our tag 80BIT-Podsmash. So you can find us at any of those. We have a subreddit /r/80bitpodsmash. Please add us on Twitter, interact with us, share articles with us, and let us know what you think and other topics you might want to hear about.
Yeah, so we will be talking about a wonderful topic next week that is yet to be determined, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.